The following podcast is a presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Bizzong.
Bizzong.
Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong.
Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong.
This is Bizzong, the weird and wacky fiction podcast, with me, your host, Mr. Frank. What's going on, Zongers? How you all doing? Hope you're well rested up and ready to go, because we got a peppy interview for you this week. I know last week I spent some time lamenting the fact that I was having a lot of trouble finding specifically bizarre authors to interview lately. And I said that knowing full well that this week's guest was going to be a bizarro author. So, it sort of proves my point that Bizarro is not dead. But still, I don't have a terrible many bizarro authors on my plate in the coming weeks and months to interview, although they will be there, I am sure. So as we dismiss the fact that, or prove the theory wrong in a way, I do want to welcome to the show this week, the one and only Mr. Matt Clarke. Clarke with an E, like the Clarke bar that not many people probably even remember, including myself. I feel like I remember it, but I don't really remember it. Matt Clarke has been, he's a new face to Bizarro, and he's a cool face. He's like, I don't know, a post-apocalyptic Bizarro author. Like, he comes into Bizarro after the whole Bizarro Con meltdown, showdown, whatever you want to call it. So he is not really even terribly aware of the history of all that. And, he sort of hears people go on and on like, G. Arthur Brown about it. And he's like, what's this all about? I don't see this big controversy in it. So he sees things in a different light, Bizarro, because he's come in after that fact. Like, there's enough distance now, between that event and now where there's new faces coming in, and we can't just keep lamenting on this whole thing, right? Because there's people like Matt Clarke out there who just love Bizarro and are really not worried about all that drama and all that fallout and all that blah, 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 blah. He just really loves and enjoys Bizarro to the tune of the fact that he's now writing it himself. And he's also, in addition to being a new Bizarro voice, he's also a new voice on the Godless.com platform that I just spew ad nauseum about here on the show because, as everybody knows, Zongers, I love Godless.com as a platform for both reading and writing and releasing my stuff on. So, I'm paying extra attention there. And to see somebody like Matt Clarke showing up on Godless going, hey, I'm a Bizarro guy. Here's my Bizarro books on this normally very heavily focused on extreme horror platform. It's great to see him there, stumping for Bizarro, getting the word out and getting people to hopefully cross over from those extreme horror interests into Bizarro. Like, he's this great new voice. He's helping promote, and he's getting new audience over into, being interested in Bizarro. What more could you possibly freaking ask for, Zongers? Not much more. He's doing the work, and he's here this week on Bizzong to talk about it all. So, let's get into the Bizzong interview of the one, the only, the Clarke Bar himself, Mr. Matt Clarke. Give us the gonga. It is my pleasure to welcome to Bizzong this week a new face for all you to enjoy. He's a new face to me, but he's doing a lot of cool, new, exciting things, and most importantly, he's actually a Bizarro guy. I was complaining the last episode that I don't get a lot of Bizarro authors anymore. Well, I got one here, like right away, big turnaround. So Bizarro's not dead. It's just, we need to keep growing it, grow it back up and everything. So the good news is we've got Bizarro author Matt Clarke with us this week to talk about all the good stuff he's got going on in the world. Matt, welcome to Bizzong.
Hello, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure having you on. I did the last episode. I was sort of just flying solo and lamenting on my own about, Bizarro's in this sort of funk, if you will, and I've been having trouble finding writers, since I like to focus on Bizarro in particular with this podcast, but not exclusively. It's hard finding Bizarro writers anymore. But you're like you're like the shiny new penny. You're like the new Bizarro guy, and you're really into Bizarro, and you want to write and create your own forms of it. Very recently, you've come on the publishing scene, at least it seems like to me. Your first book is Coffin Dodgers, is it not?
Yeah, you're completely right there. I mean, obviously with the pandemic going on, I've had a lot more time to write, and Coffin Dodgers was something that I'd been kind of planning for several years, to be honest. I just finally thought I've got no more excuses to put this off anymore. Just going to bite the bullet, bit of confidence, and that's the end product of it, really.
Now, the other thing I'm excited about what you do, in addition to just being like a Bizarro guy out there, you've also fully embraced the Godless.com platform for releasing your stuff. Was Godless sort of the catalyst, this is like, I'm ready to jump in now, and this is a cool way to do it?
Yeah, I mean, in a way it was. I knew a few people who were on Godless already. Mm-hmm. And I reached out to Drew, and he was really approachable. I didn't really have a clue what I was trying to do at first. As you know, I'm quite new to the scene. I mean, I had been looking to submit to Eraserhead Press this year, see if I could get something published through them as well. But so far they haven't actually opened for submissions. So, yeah, I mean, at the moment I've got 2 books on Godless, and I'm working on a third at the moment, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've been putting out stuff pretty rapidly, it seems, too. Coffin Dodgers was only like 3 months ago, maybe, that you first came out in May, right? It came out in May. You just had the Mantis book come out last month, and now you're getting ready to release a third. Is this like you said, with the pandemic and everything being locked down, you just were hunkered down writing all this stuff, and now it's like sitting there and you can't wait to release it to the world, so here it all comes?
Yeah, I mean, Coffin Dodgers certainly was. As far as the Mantis one, I felt like I'd kind of found my flow with Bizarro. I've been writing horror for 2 or 3 years, but just putting pen to paper with that first Bizarro story, it just felt like that was what I had been missing out on doing. It just came naturally to me. I mean, it's weird, it's quirky, it's funny, and you can incorporate elements of horror there as well, so it's not like I was missing out on anything.
Mm-hmm. Did you find you were, when you were doing the more horror stuff, did you find that it was always a little bit too weird for horror, but you just didn't know what it was you were doing until you discovered Bizarro?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. My first short story was published in the Books of Horror Anthology #1. Mr. R.J. Rolls was nice enough to accept my story. It was called, it was Ivan the Invisible, and it was a weird little story about a boy with an invisibility cloak, and the whole time I tried to have the audience guessing whether he was actually invisible or if he was just making it all up in his head. And by the end, I like to think it came across that it was fake, but somebody gets murdered and then they actually use the cloak to hide the body. That's what I mean. I've always been into writing strange horror, and I feel some of the things I've been submitting to haven't quite been the right fit, because it's not strictly horror enough for them. But I mean, with self-publishing, I don't have an issue with that at all.
Right.
And I'm just trying to find more of an audience at the moment.
So what was it, where did you discover Bizarro? What book was it that, opened up that door for you?
I believe it was actually the Cannibals of Candyland, obviously Carlson Melick. From there I went on to his kind of slightly horror ones. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear.
Oh yeah, swear away.
Yeah. Cool. I swear quite a lot, so that's good. Ape Shit, Clusterfuck. I then went on to the less popular ones. I reached out to Bizarro authors that don't actually have things that are published at the moment to see if there's anywhere that I could get hold of it.
Uh-huh.
And what I've found is the community as a whole is just so friendly and helpful. And they seem to have the same kind of personality that I do, like a sense of humour. I just really found like I found my place, to be honest.
That's great. And so that, like, from there, you know, that you knew, like, Eraserhead, you identified as somewhere like, this is where my work really belongs. This is where I should be submitting to publishers like Eraserhead.
Definitely. When I decided I was going to switch my focus from horror to Bizarro, Eraserhead is kind of like the one goal I had for myself. Like, if I could get something accepted there, then I would feel like I'd really achieved something as a writer. It wasn't until recently, actually, I heard online about the silly controversies a few years ago and the supposed death of Bizarro, but I don't agree with that at all from people I've spoken to and the reception that my books have had, especially. I don't feel that it's dying at all, to be honest. And I'm kind of trying to do everything that I can to push it to a new audience as much as one man can do on his own anyway.
Yeah, I mean, again, I totally agree with you. It's you know, it did fumble or fall or get set back, you know, after that whole initial thing at that Bizarro Con. But, it's not dead. It's not going to die. It's never going to die. It's going to continue. And there's going to be good people like you that don't care about necessarily things that happen and the people amongst it. You care about the work. You care about, the love of the genre and telling stories like that. That's what keeps Bizarro, there and alive and going and moving forward, like we're well beyond that now. That's several years ago now. We all need to move past that. So, and just keep championing things. So it's great to see people like you, new voices of Bizarro. It's not these people like, coming up from the ashes. You're a brand new voice, still embracing Bizarro. People are out there still discovering it. And then, this is where I need to be. I've always felt that I've written this stories in this weird sort of unique way. And now I see the home for it, the audience for it. And this is great. But you've also at the same time where, you have these stories and you want to do this now. Not necessary. It's still a little rough to find publishers out there, actively at the moment looking for Bizarro stories. So I guess now you see Drew Steppick and Godless out there and you're like, this is a way that I can start sharing my stories with the world very quickly. That's sort of what you saw in it.
Yeah, definitely. And the support that I've actually had through Drew the whole way has just blown me away. I was quite nervous at first because I've never kind of dealt directly with like a website owner who's trying to push my work for me. Didn't really know what to expect. But, I'd heard a lot of positive things from friends of mine who were on there as well. And I just thought, I've got nothing to lose. I need to reach an audience here because obviously with horror, where I was before, I already had kind of an established audience, although it was small. I find it's a lot easier to reach more people because once somebody's found one of your works on, say, Goodreads, Amazon, any of those places, it's quite easy for them to stumble on something else. But with Bizarro, it is obviously harder. I'm finding it harder anyway to find that initial audience. I've got like a small circle of people who seem to love what I'm doing. But I mean, it's always been for me as well. I've never been about wanting to get famous with my writing or become a millionaire. It's always just been for the love of it and just to entertain people and make them laugh.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a lofty goal. It's a sensible goal to have. And, you're at Godless, like, at the right time. And, one of the early things I liked about Godless was, even though it's heavily focused on, like, extreme horror sort of stories, Drew himself is definitely open to really all comers, but especially Bizarro. It's something he's kind of wanted to champion in addition to that extreme horror stuff because he recognizes the the outside of the box thinking and everything that just goes along with the genre and that type of storytelling. So it's great to see you and him working together. Like, he understands that, and yes, he's done a lot to help promote you, and it's just a great opportunity. I think I've seen, a lot of people reacting extremely positively towards everything you have on Godless at the moment. And they're starting, I think it's like nice, like people they're on that extreme horror footing, but they're seeing these different things and Bizarro, and it's like, now this is a new opportunity. This is a great opportunity, like, to start growing the genre into an audience that's not necessarily, they've probably heard of it, but never really were ready to, check it out. And just Godless and the audience there are so ravenous, and they're willing to check this stuff out. And I think I'm seeing a lot of people, opening Coffin Dodgers and going, oh, well, if that's what Bizarro is, I'm kind of digging what this Bizarro is. What else is there? So, like, you're really at a great point. You're like the cheerleader at the moment on this great new platform that's starting to open up a new audience for the genre. And it's, you're only going to benefit from that, because it's like, you're the Bizarro guy on there right now. Like, you're the sort of spokesperson for the thing. So over time, like, you're going to be, maybe you could be the new Carlton Mellick. I know you're not looking for fame and fortune, and I'm sure Carlton Mellick might say, I don't have fame and fortune. But within the niche, it's a great position for yourself, to be in. So, let's dig in a little further, like with your first offering, Coffin Dodgers. Just briefly tell everybody what that story's all about.
Okay, yeah. So essentially, it's a battle between the old and the young. Basic premise was a scientist was looking for a way to extend his life, but he had a heart attack whilst he was trying to inject himself with this vial of material. So it leaks into the atmosphere. Basically, all of the elderly get superpowers. So if they had good eyesight before this hit their system, they got super eyesight and perhaps became vultures, which are like the snipers for the Grey Army. Or you've got rhinos, which are sort of leathery skinned men in small swimsuits. I basically spent, because I live in quite an old area, there's a lot of elderly here. Mm-hmm. I was able to kind of observe the types of old people that I was seeing a lot of, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I thought it might be quite funny to incorporate those into my story. So essentially, the protagonist is a young guy who's been kept in a bubble and raised from birth to look a lot older than he actually is. Mm-hmm. And he's the secret weapon of the young army. And his mission is to infiltrate the Greys base and take down their leader from the inside. That's the basic.
That's the rub of it. It's so cool to like make a sort of an age thing out of it. And I love that you call the old people the Greys. It's got a certain charm to it. But I like that, it's a unique sort of a tale too, right? And it's also got, I guess, really like sort of a sci-fi bent to it. Are you into sci-fi?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I am. I don't sort of go out of my way to read or watch sci-fi, but I certainly enjoy it. And a lot of the things that were coming to my head while I was writing it seem to have that kind of a bone to it. I mean, there's obviously giant mechs. There's big traps, honey traps, futuristic weaponry. So yeah, I suppose without meaning to, I sort of ventured into that territory as well. But I mean, mainly I was trying to make something that was plausible as well as completely ridiculous. I mean, some of the Bizarro that I've read is so out there that I have trouble following it. That makes sense. But I tried to keep it grounded in reality, as well as bringing aspects to it that were just completely batshit crazy. And so it was mainly for my own entertainment, and I'm really happy that other people have enjoyed it as well. And it's just, it's just spurred me to keep going at it, really.
And that's a good position, like a good way to want to tackle Bizarro is sort of have something like realistic to grab onto, and to always have sort of have a place to grab onto, because a lot of people, I think they're the exception they take to Bizarro is some of it is so far out there that it is difficult if you're not into the thing, or you're just starting to get into it. Some stuff is so wild, it is difficult to wrap your head around the stuff. I know when I first started getting into it, I read things like the Ask Goblins of Auschwitz, which is still to this day the most insane story. It's still hard to grasp onto because it is so far out there. There is really nothing of any sort of realism to just grab a hold of and sort of anchor yourself with on the whole thing. It is so crazy far out there. Because of that, I can identify as one of the best Bizarro stories I ever wrote, because I can't say it was one of my most favorite things, but it was probably the most Bizarro of everything I wrote. But stuff like Coffin Dodgers, where you do have that sense of reality to spring off of and hold on to, and then let other things be weird around it. That's a great starting point for people who aren't sure about whether they want to explore that type of genre. So that's another great thing that you have going on there and being on the Godless platform, where people are starting to get curious about it and look towards the Bizarro stuff.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. I hadn't really thought of it that way, but it's kind of like I guess you could call it a entry level Bizarro. I mean, Bizarro, the way I see it is such a broad spectrum. Mm-hmm. There's some books I've read that I probably wouldn't even call Bizarro myself, and some that are just so insane that I enjoy them, but it's not my cup of tea so much.
Right.
I kind of prefer a mixture of the two, but I know there's a lot of people that like it one way or the other. So hopefully, if they were to pick up one of mine, they'd find something in it that they would like either way.
And I hope so, because moving on to it, I absolutely adore this title. It made me, title alone, want to pick up and read this book, which I did pick it up. I just haven't read it yet, like every freaking thing else. But your second release on Godless, I love this. Things were easier before you became a giant fucking mantis. That is such a Bizarro title. Tell me about this book.
Yeah, well, starting with the title, I mean, that was actually the name I had on the first draft of the book when I was doing it, and I just thought, normally I'd go through 2 or 3 titles and make my mind up, but I just thought, no, I think that is the one. There's nothing else that fits this better.
Yeah.
And I mean, so this one is, I guess it's kind of more of a love story, about picking sides between the person that you've grown up and now in love with, the character is, over his family and friends who turn out to be not these great people that he's grown up thinking they were. I mean, I wanted to touch on some more serious issues with this one, because obviously Coffin Dodgers was great fun and all, but I'm not sure I really had a kind of an underlying message beneath it all. It was more just, a fun story for everyone to enjoy. But with this one, I kind of wanted to make it something more about making the right choices and respecting each other for who we are. But yeah, it's about this girl who, she has mantisism running in her family, which I don't even know where to start with this, even though I wrote it. But basically, you just need to accept from the start that there are manty people in the world.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to turn into one, but you don't know until it happens. Mm-hmm. But she has this gene running in her family already. And Jacoby, don't ask about the name, but the protagonist, he's actually a member of the SMK, which is a not so subtle play on words with the KKK, but they're anti-mantis.
Okay.
And so basically, when she starts turning into a praying mantis, he has to choose whether he's going to stick with her and run away and start a new life, or team up with his friends and family to basically do what they would normally do, which is just chase her out of town and basically kill them because they hate them.
Mm-hmm. That's really like
There's a lot to unpack with this one. I mean, it's quite. I mean, I've never read anything like it, so I'm struggling with how to describe it, even though I wrote it myself.
There seems to be, not having written it, just sort of reading synopsis and getting a feel for it. It seems like maybe at its core, despite like some of the social stuff that you're dealing with, it seems like it might really just kind of be like a coming of age type of story, no?
It is, yeah, definitely is as well. It does span a few years over the course of the story, and we get to see obviously where they were at the start, and how they ended up getting to where they are in the future, and how they've grown and changed together as a couple. But then I thought, about halfway through the book, I thought I want another character in this. I need someone that's going to kind of lighten the mood and also just be like, what the hell? So I thought I'd throw in a talking gnome. Plus another thing, there's a lot of gnomes in this world, like garden variety gnomes.
Uh-huh.
But this talking gnome in particular was stored in Jack Bobby's attic because he used to abuse him when he was younger. So he's blocked him out of his head and he doesn't even know he's up there.
Huh.
But without wanting to ruin too much of the story, they do meet up eventually. And yeah, I'm going to stop there because I can't really say anything else without ruining it.
I mean, it really does sound like a pretty intense story for something like with that title of Things Were Easier Before You Became a Giant Fucking Menace, which, it's just a great sort of like, it evokes these, like the Carlton Melick, every time we meet the Dairy Queen, your whole fucking face explodes, which is like one of the greatest titles ever. So it has that feel to it. But, when you dig down deeper into what the story's about, it sounds deeper. It sounds a little more like, to take pause and sort of, think about things, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously with what it is in itself, it's still, just, a bit of silly fun. I tried to make it a really good story with a twist that you wouldn't see coming. As I say, I wanted to try and put a few other subtle messages in there as well. Nothing political. I don't do politics at all. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
But just things that I feel personally, and I think everyone can benefit from thinking about as well, really. I mean, the next one that I'm working on is probably not going to have anything like that. It's just mental. Might not be for everyone, but this is probably the most serious one that I'll do for a while. And obviously going from the title, things were simpler before she started turning into a giant fucking mantis, but it wasn't necessarily simple for a good reason, and that's the whole problem with the story, basically.
Huh. And why did you gravitate towards mantis in particular?
Well, to be honest, I've got no fucking idea. I used to have a couple, actually.
Really?
And yeah, I love them as, little creatures, but as to why, I really don't know. I had the basic idea of this guy's girlfriend changing into something, but everything that I thought of before that, it just didn't really make as much sense to me.
Uh-huh.
Because I know I said I wanted to ground things in realism before, but I mean, obviously praying mantises do shed their skin and they get bigger as they grow. And I thought this could be really cool to sort of incorporate into a human. Like if they hit puberty, what would happen if they actually shedded their entire skin?
Yeah.
And just transformed as that. So I guess that was, I mean, I wish I could tell you how my brain works, but some of the stuff that comes out of there sometimes just surprises me, to be honest.
Yeah.
No idea.
So it's just you did have a sort of personal connection to mantises and stuff like that, and you were related to the story you wanted to tell.
Yeah, I mean, there was obviously some stuff knocking around in the behind the scenes that I wasn't aware of.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I mean, normally when I do these stories, I knock out the whole thing. I know a lot of people do loads of rewrites, but I usually find that I'm actually quite happy with what I've got first time round. Of course, there's several rounds of editing and proofreading and beta readers, but I never find that I have to actually change too much of the actual story.
Uh-huh.
Because, well, I don't know why. I just come up with these ideas and I find it fucking hilarious. So I think, I want to write about this sort of thing, and people might think I'm a bit strange for it, but at the end of the day, I'm quite happy doing what I enjoy doing, and, so be it if that's what I'm known for, really.
Oh, yeah, totally. Is that, because you don't spend a lot of time reworking and you just kind of get the story you want, mostly, on that first draft, is that sort of why you're able to, spit out, all these books sort of rapid fire, or like your process? Like, how long would it take you to write something like the Mantis book?
Yeah, well, I mean, Coffin Dodgers was 60,000 words. That took about 8 months, start to finish, and then the Mantis one is about 40,000 words. I think that took about 3 months, but I did have quite a lot of time off work, so I was probably writing for about 8 hours a day for a lot of that.
Oh, wow, yeah. You could really focus in on this.
Yeah. I really struggle with distractions and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So probably about 4 hours of that is actually writing. But, I mean, yeah, I do edit. I make sure it's all as good as I can get it. But generally I'm happy with what I've come up with. I don't feel I need to make any drastic changes to the plot or add and remove characters, anything like that. I mean, at least so far, this is only my fourth book, technically.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of horrors. One of them's out. Came out yesterday, actually. The other one won't be for a while yet. But, yeah, I mean, with Bizarro, it just seems to flow so much better out of me. And I'm not constantly doubting myself when I'm writing it either, like I was with horror. I mean, sometimes I just really feel like it wasn't good enough and I didn't know how to get from one place to the other. But with these books, I'll sit down, I'll write out a basic plot over a few days, work out the subplots and the main characters, and then after that, I mean, it just kind of flows out of me.
Mm. Well, it's a nice talent and ability to have, as a writer, that ability to really get it flow and really kind of like have that feeling that you've nailed your story, the first time around, where you're not constantly, I guess, maybe sort of having some doubt about how things go and constantly reworking and retooling and stuff like that. That can be, sometimes it can be, I think, detrimental to people's processes. And so it's good that you have the confidence right away in the work that you've released.
Yeah, I think if you sit on things for too long, I know you should set it aside. I do set it aside for probably a few weeks to a month and then take a look at it again. But I think if you just worry too much, it's just never going to happen, is it? It just takes so long to get anything done. And you just, self-doubt starts to creep in. Like, I don't think I'm an amazing author or anything, but I certainly enjoy what I do, and I know other people are enjoying it as well. So I try not to worry too much, really, and just have fun with it.
Yeah, if it looks like it's working, like, yeah, why, you're getting that really good feedback so far on your work. So, yeah, and like you said, you don't feel like you need to change the world with your writing and set the world on fire and just be a known quantity or anything. You're happy with the level you're working at, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I do want to boost the Bizarro scene as a whole as much as I can.
Uh-huh.
I'm still early stages with this, but I've been talking to quite a few Bizarro authors. As I say, I'm really surprised at how approachable a lot of these people are. They're like idols to me. I've read their books and send them a message, and they're quite happy just to have a chat with you. But I mean, I've got a few ideas I'm kind of playing about with, because I just think it's fantastic, Bizarro. I mean, what more could you want? You've got the horror if you want it. You've got comedy. You've just got brilliant characters and storylines from so many great people. It's just got everything for me, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I love the you can be so imaginative about stories in a way, it's like an untethered thing because you're able to throw out those rules, even though you may like some sort of reality basis, to have to build off of. You can still, like you said, just with the giant fucking mantis, it's like just accept that there's mantis people in the world, and that's all that as long as you can drop that and just not worry about that, we can have a lot of fun, and especially as a writer, like you said, I mean, that's probably for you why it comes out so easy, because you don't have to worry about things. It's you're making this all up as it goes along. There's nobody can question you about it, right? If you can't accept that there's mantis people, then you just don't need to be reading this book because it's such a little thing you're asking to let go of and have that much fun.
Yeah, I mean, if you pick up any Bizarro book, you've got to be expecting to suspend that disbelief at least a little bit, because you know that the stuff between those pages is just going to be mental. That's what most people look for when they pick up a Carlson Melick book, Cameron Pierce, any of these big names.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I say, it's insane having mantis people, but as long as I think I've covered my main bases as to why it's happening and how it happens, so it seems a bit more believable to people, even though it's obviously not at all. Rather than just saying, this person turned into a mantis, or, just going from there. I actually try and explain things a bit better, just to say, ground it in reality, because I just find it more fun that way, to be honest. There's some things that I've read that are just, they'll say, oh, this person, I don't know, took a wardrobe, stored it in their pocket, blah, 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 did this, did that. And it's just like, well, there's no way that would ever be possible, Maybe if they had an extending pocket, they could fit whatever they wanted in there. That would make sense. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's completely not a shit, but I would go along with that, because at least there's kind of an explanation for it, if that makes sense. But I mean, as I said before, this is just what I like. I know there's lots of people in the Bizarro scene that like things that are, like that, or just a bit of gentle Bizarro. Either way.
Yeah. I mean,
but it's the same as anything, really.
Yeah, it's like you said, Bizarro is so many things, and it's Bizarro in addition to those sort of, it's horror, it's mystery, it's, sci-fi, it's so many things, but it's also Bizarro.
It's not limited.
Right.
Yeah.
And in that, people might not, maybe you write a romance, Bizarro romance. Well, not every romance isn't for everybody, so, just because it's Bizarro doesn't necessarily mean you're going to immediately like it. And so it's, you sort of pick and choose the type of Bizarro that, appeals to you.
Exactly. That's the thing. I've never liked kind of having to label things. With Bizarro, it's just so many things, like you say, you can do with it, that not once have I felt limited. Like, oh no, I can't venture too far into this territory. Because even if I decided tomorrow to write a full-blown romance story, mm-hmm. I could still make one of the main characters a Tyrannosaurus Rex or something, and then call it a Bizarro, and people would accept it as that. But it's just, you don't get that with many genres. As I say, when I started off in horror, I would get stories rejected for people saying it's not horror enough, not enough horror elements, stuff like that. Because I might have like a weird creature that comes down out of the trees and wraps himself around people to strangle them. Just weird things like that I think are really cool. But apparently they're not scary enough. But I realised that maybe I've been writing Bizarro this whole time. I hadn't even heard of it, to be honest, until about 2 years ago. And then I just thought, holy shit, like, I think this is what I'm missing. This is my thing. Because I know it's huge. Or it was huge in America. Certainly over here, at least in the groups that I'd been circulating in, I hadn't really heard of Bizarro, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what I want to change. I want it to be known, especially over here in England, because I don't think there's many people that are sort of doing it, and I want to push it. I want to make the scene more active again. So down the line, I have been kind of toying with the idea of maybe starting a small press myself and taking submissions for anthologies to encourage other people to start writing it, to see how that goes. But that's a long way down the line yet. But yeah, I'm just trying to think of ways I can really push it to the forefront of maybe the horror community as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you do. I think you've just sort of been introduced, and there is a sort of loose knit British bizarre community that I have interacted with, and they're really good. They're like a very positive, tight knit group of people. You know, Madeline Swan and Liam Charlow. There's a definite handful or so. And I think they often meet, or before pandemic, they often met up at pubs and such around London. So, I'm actually going whenever the next one is. Yeah, that'd be a good group to connect with for you for sure. And you sound definitely motivated. You're definitely the type of person they would love to have come in here and fold, because you've got these ideas, and maybe you don't have the ability to execute necessarily right now, but you have the intention to build and grow and do that. And that's exactly what everybody over there is looking for. So that's really cool that you have that. One of the things I did want to touch on too, was recently Drew Stepek made a push for branding on the Godless platform. And he used sort of skateboard graphics as his model for like what the type of feel and things he wanted to get for. And you were one of the first people that came out with this Matty Clarke, like the Clarke bar looking branding symbol that now adorns your, like a band along your books, and it gives like this sort of a branded feel, a sort of a unified feel for your books. Tell me how that all came about to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so thankful for that. It's just such a brilliant idea. I think it was after Coffin Dodgers first went up on Godless. Drew shot me a message and he said, the old skate shops, the colourful logos and the eye-catching decals. He said, that's what I want to be doing with our work. And he said that he wanted to try and create a brand for some of the authors on his site. And obviously I said, yeah, that sounds fantastic. And when he sent me across the logo, I did have to look it up because I hadn't heard of a Clarke bar before. I'm not sure if we have them over here. I was like, what is that? I looked it up and I was like, oh, awesome. That's so cool. And I absolutely love it now. And he's been kind enough to let me put it on all of my books across all platforms. But yeah, I mean, I can't sing Drew's praise enough, really. Godless is just a fantastic platform for discovering new indie authors. And what I found is although a lot of them are obviously extreme writers, extreme horror writers, they're all super supportive and just great people.
Yes.
And we all just try and help each other out and promote each other. And yeah, it's just such a good place to be for an indie author.
It definitely is, and you know, seeing you sort of at the forefront and owning that and utilizing this new platform to your benefit is really great. I mean, it's definitely you know, kept you on my radar specifically, and you know, of course, as much as I like a lot of this extreme stuff that's up there in Godless, I mean, even stuff when you consider stuff like Mother Maggot, you know, like the sort of flagship title for what Godless is. I mean, there's Bizarro in that. I mean, it's just a weird, crazy story, mental, as you say. So
Yeah.
it does, you know, it's that sort of thing. It's extreme horror, but it's so weird and crazy and not normal that, you know, if people love Mother Maggot, they're gonna love any kind of Bizarro. They're gonna love Coffin Dodgers. They're gonna love Giant Fucking Menace because, you know, the extreme horror moniker, I don't know, with like a Mother Maggot, I think Mother Maggot is really probably closer to Bizarro than it is extreme horror in my mind. So it's just people, now you have this built-in audience who's rabid about these books. And, you know, to go, well, if you like Mother Maggot, like, maybe it's not that gross and everything, but it's definitely as mental to take a look at my stuff too. And that's like a really good gateway to get people to take that leap into Bizarro, even though, like, Simon McCarty's not calling his stuff Bizarro necessarily, and you are. And so, like, it's easy to make that jump for people and try it out, I think.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm not going to lie, that's one of the titles I've had on my Kindle for a while now. I've just got so many books to read.
Yes.
I mean, I have read his Red Band series, and one in particular I read of his was Gob and Knob, and I thought that was just fantastic. That was so brilliant.
That's another one. That's totally Bizarro.
Yeah, I sent him a message and I said, this is just hilarious, man. It's so good. Like, it's brutal, it's weird, it's funny. It's exactly what I look for in a book. And I knew I just had to check out the rest of his work from there. I mean, I think maybe that could be classed as Bizarro if he had wanted to do that.
Yeah.
But it's certainly extreme as well. But yeah, as you say, that kind of thing, it does bridge the gap between the two genres. And I feel it's really going to help a new audience discover more of our works. I know Danny Brown.
Yes.
She's on there as well. Another Bizarro author. But yeah, I mean, it's just great. As soon as people start picking one up, I really feel that they're going to enjoy it and, you know, want to find out what happens in this other one. And from this point forward, I'm going to be looking to use in-your-face titles, in-your-face graphics, the stuff that you would expect to see on a Bizarro book, and really just work on the branding so people know what they're going to get when they see the book on Godless.
Yeah, and as standout as your covers are, you know, that extra Matt Clarke branding, the Clarke bar branding bar at the bottom, I mean, that really ties it together, and it's an immediate visual signal. This is Matt Clarke stuff. Like, you didn't even have to read it. It's just like visually speaking, bang, you immediately see that bar along the bottom and know as one of the Matt Clarke Bizarro books, sight unsold. I think you almost gravitate towards that even before you look at the title or anything.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is so important, and I can't believe that I never realised it before, to be honest. You see it with so many things. Branding as a whole is just such a big part of drawing people in, and as you say, they see that, they know what they're going to get straight off the bat. Don't have to read the title, don't have to look at the picture even, but they see Clarke, they know it's going to be disgusting, violent, bizarre, and yeah, hopefully it will, it should do me justice. The same with a lot of the other guys on there. I know they're working on their own sort of branding, and I just think it's such a great idea for the website as a whole.
Yeah, it's really an excellent. I think your particular branding emblem is exemplary of what Drew was trying to get across and demonstrate by that sort of branding signaling. It's pretty great that you have that.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about, sort of like what you're going to be writing now too, I've definitely noticed, on the biggest sellers on Godless are these short, punchy, cheap things. The 50 cents, like, I mean, Drew was on and on about that from even before he launched it. He really wanted to push these 50-cent sort of stories, and people, it's tough to want to change your model, especially when we're all used to sort of that Amazon 99-cent sort of model thing. But he's proving the concept in the way that sales are going for these short, punchy things. Are you finding you're going to start writing more towards that model?
Yeah, I mean, that hasn't gone unnoticed. I've been talking with the Hawkman, Sean Hawker, and I've already mentioned this to him, but the one that I'm actually working on at the moment, I'm going to be releasing as more of a episodic series. So it will be probably about 5,000 words per episode, 50 cents, each will be leading on to the next one. So in the end, it will be like a full-length novel that I'll be able to sort of package and sell as one thing as well. But I think on the platform, as you say, the short stories and the 50-cent stories, they're the ones that really seem to be excelling.
Yes.
Doing really well. Whereas the guys with only slightly more expensive titles, $1.99, $2.99, and the longer titles, they don't seem to be selling as well. But I think that's because of the audience Godless has at the moment.
Yeah.
That's obviously could be subject to change over time. And I'm sure it will be. There's going to be a lot of people that discover this website and go, holy shit, this is great.
Right.
But for now, I want to kind of do my own shorter series for that low price, so people can pick it up and go, cool, this is pretty cool actually, like, I want to check out some more of Matt's work. Or,
right, yeah, then you would hope to drive them towards the Coffin Dodgers and stuff like that. Yeah, it just makes all the sense in the world. I know I had a similar discussion with another interview on this very thing, and the thing I said was, I've noticed that too. I'm sure a lot of people are noticing what's in the bestsellers on Godless and feel the need to start, writing towards that. And what I've said is it's been disruptive of my of my process, but it's disruptive in a good way. And when you often talk about things that sort of change the world, change the way things go, they're often referred to as disruptive. So I think Godless is really being disruptive in both the writing and reading community in a great way. And we're starting to, like, he's just starting something bigger than, like, just, having a place to buy some unique fiction. And yeah, I'm feeling this same draw as you, like, so starting to get some of that short, punchy stuff up there to embrace, what's happening over there now, the whole model of working with stuff. I only see it working. And I know you too. I always say, thank God that Drew Stepik isn't Jesus Christ, because I'd have to be one of his apostles. Like, I believe in this guy. And when he sells you on an idea, man, you just want to believe, even though it may not make sense. He really gets you excited about it.
Yeah, you get caught up in it, don't you?
Yes.
Come on, this is great.
So I guess it's like where he comes to you and goes, you need this thing, Clarke Bar, don't worry about it, just do it. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, do it.
That's pretty much how it went. Yeah,
yeah, I deferred to him a lot when working on Godless. And if he's got like an idea, I'm like, I don't know, it sounds a little crazy, I'm not sure, but let's go with it. And it's worked out every time I've tried something on there. It's been doing gangbusters, shall we say, and I see that working for you as well. I mean, your titles are right up there constantly on the bestseller list.
Yeah, I mean, Drew's obviously had a vision from this from the start. I wasn't in there ground level. I didn't find out about it till slightly later on, but the guy knows what he's doing. Clearly, he's got a vision and he's sticking to it. Like, I've never seen any other sites like this. people can go here. They know they can pick up a quick read, 50 cents. They're going to be reading half hour, maybe an hour.
Uh-huh.
Fantastic authors. You know, what's 50 cents? I don't know. That's like 20p over here. It's nothing.
Right.
Like, it's just insane. And these guys are such great authors. I really feel like it's going to get massive. And I know that, there's an app coming out as well, I believe.
Yeah, he's working on an app.
Yeah. And once that's out, I think that's going to be a real game changer as well.
And thank you for doing the currency. I forgot I was talking to well, you're British and you're not on the 50 cents thing. You're on, pence, is it?
Yeah. I mean, it still says cents on the website when I go on it, but
when you do the purchase, it's
like about 20 pence. Yeah, something like that.
That's good. That's good for all our British friends to understand what I mean when I say 50 cents. Thanks for picking up that ball for me there. Briefly before we, to finish out, I do want to touch on, you said it just came out, Beyond Human is your new thing. Now, are you saying this one's more straight horror?
It is, yeah. Beyond Human is something I actually wrote at the start of 2020. I wrote it quite a long time ago and I submitted it to a publisher. It got accepted in October last year and then I just completely forgot about it until about 2 weeks ago when they sent me a message and said, oh, your release window's coming up. Here's the promo stuff. I was like, oh crap, I forgot I even wrote that, but great. But it's a novella. It's 20,000 odd words. It's kind of in the vein of Resident Evil, survival horror, a lot of body horror.
Uh-huh.
But I sent a few arcs out to some of the authors on Godless, and the feedback has just blown me away. Because obviously this is like pretty gruesome, gory, guts. Yeah, it's been doing great so far. As I say, it only actually came out yesterday, day before yesterday.
Yeah, it looks like the 23rd of July it was released.
That's the one, yeah. Yeah, that was when I was trying to focus on horror. I do actually have a sequel as well, but that won't be out for probably a year or so yet. Again, I did have plans for a third in the series, but at the moment I'm unsure as to whether I'll go back to that again.
Right. Yeah. Your heart's not into into the whole.
Well, yeah. I mean, it has a lot of strangeness to it as well. But it depends where I'm at with my ideas. At the moment, with my Bizarro, I've got probably 3 ideas for books. But it depends if I get those out and I'm running dry for a while. Then yeah, I may go back and do the third horror story. I mean, each one is kind of standalone anyway. So Beyond Human is standalone, although if you do pick up this next one, which I'm not actually allowed to say what it is yet, you'll see a lot of nods to Beyond Human in it.
Gotcha.
But it will be standalone on its own sort of thing.
Okay. So there is no like big push neither to necessarily finish up the series of 3 books because it doesn't really, it's not necessarily a series.
No, that's what I mean. I mean, when I started it out, it was a 5,000 word short story that I submitted. I think it was, I think it was Dark Peninsula Press, something like that. But, it got rejected, and then reading it back, I could obviously see why it did. So I spent a few months working on it and bulked it up into a novella. And then obviously that got accepted. And then after that, I still have ideas from where I can go with it, as I say, but I don't feel like I have to. I don't have to stress about it if I don't get around to it, sort of thing. Or unless these two get, some massive, incredible feedback and people really want to see where it's going to go next, sort of thing, then yeah, I probably will. But as I say, for now, I really want to focus on the Bizarro scene, attracting new audiences, and the ones that are already there, obviously, just getting my name out there. Even this interview, as you know, I was quite nervous to come on. I've never done anything like this. I haven't even used Skype before, recorded anything. But I thought, you need to do this for Bizzaro to get it heard, get it seen by more people. It's just important. It just seems like a logical step to try and get things moving,
Yeah, I mean, I definitely appreciate you coming on and talking about it. Like I said, my previous episode where I was on about like having difficulty finding Bizzaro guests, and at the time when I did that, I knew I had you as a guest, just didn't have it on yet. But still, it's great to have it on, and my door's open to everybody. So if there are other Bizzaro people out there, like do like Matt, like just grab the bull by the horns and get on here and start talking about it, because we all need that. We all need to keep pushing it forward, not let it stagnate, because there is a lot of Bizzaro out there, and Matt Clarke he's trying to lead the charge here, not just in Britain, but for the whole community of Bizzaros everywhere, and he's doing a great job of it. I mean, he's one of the few I see on there Godless selling his Bizzaro, and not worrying about the extreme horror and stuff. He's making his mark as a Bizzaro on there, and I love that about it, because I totally, as everybody knows that listens to the show, totally love and believe in Godless, and for Matt to be getting Bizzaro on there and push it, it's fantastic opportunity. I cannot stress enough. I'm sure Matt cannot stress enough. If you got some stuff, reach out to Drew Stepik, godless.com. There's a million ways to contact him, and he's an easygoing dude. If you got stuff for him, he wants it, he will put it up on there, and it's just a great benefit to be on that platform, I believe. And I hope that after this discussion we had with Matt here today, you'll believe that a little more and check it out.
Yeah, I'd say the same. I'd recommend it to anyone looking for a new platform to get their work on. So, it's just a great way to get seen. It's free. They're helpful.
And it's a better way to support writers, monetarily, better than Amazon. You're making actually more money, even for cheaper books. You're still making more money than you would on Amazon. So it's a great way to support the writers that you enjoy reading. So yeah, I hope everybody, if you're not already on Godless, you'll set up an account there just to check out what's on there. It's 50-cent books. There's a lot of people in these groups on Facebook saying, look at all the books I got for like $6. I don't know what the conversion is for pounds, but we can work on it. And I mean, they're just loving the amount of content they get for relatively little money. So it's everybody's winning here on Godless, and I think Matt's helping to demonstrate that here. Matt, it has been wonderful to get you on the show and finally talk to you. Definitely looking forward to digging into your books finally. I'm going right after that Mantis book right away. And we'll take it from there. And when you get some more stuff out there in the world, don't hesitate to come back here on Bizzong and support and promote it yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been great. You've been great. Thank you.
Matt Clarke, Zonger's champion of Bizzaro. You should support Matt Clarke for no other reason than he is a big supporter of Bizzaro. Don't care about no drama, don't care about no communities, just wants to push forward the genre and lift everybody else in the process who is writing and supporting Bizzaro. What more could you freaking ask for, Zongers? That's all any of us could ask for, is a champion like Matt Clarke. He's here. I mean, I can see him with his glorious codpiece and a shining silvery sword, just saving it. He's a hero. He's a goddamn hero with wings, Zongers, flying across the sky, riding. Maybe he's not flying himself. He's riding on a mantis that's flying on across the sky, saving Bizzaro on his giant mantis. And then he's gonna stop and have himself a sip of beer at the pub. Some suds at the pub. I don't know. What do you call it over there in England? I want to thank Matt Clarke for being the translator. I often forget. I'm speaking to people from foreign lands who use different currency. So Matt Clarke picked right up on it. He's like, no, not 50 cents. That's like 21 pence. Like, he did the conversion, like, bang, right there and then. So it's to the benefit of everybody. I did the conversion later on. 50 cents, if you're listening in Japan, is like 55 yen. So, like, that'll help you out, too, if you're not sure what 50 cents looks like in Japan. 55 yen. There it is, Zongers. Get on Godless, get cheap, awesome, fun books, and just support awesome people like Matt Clarke. That's all I've got for you, fine Zongers, this week. So happy to be able to present you another bizarro author. We'll be back next week with another great author, another great show. And until then, you are now free to go and listen to these other great Project Entertainment Network podcasts.
How do people who make stuff up for a living make stuff up?
New York Times bestseller Jonathan Mayberry told us.
Oprah's book club favorite Sue Miller told us.
You sort of take a character and make some bad things happen.
How'd we get them to do that?
We collared them, just like at a cocktail party, except through your headphones.
Join us every Thursday for the Liars Club Oddcast.
A slightly unhinged podcast where storytellers interview other storytellers.
Available on Project Entertainment Network, iTunes, and everywhere podcasts are heard.
This has been a presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.